Greetings and welcome to the daily demonstration against the covert Russian war, against the terror, against the genocide in Ukraine. Today is 1,263rd day since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. During 1,263 days, Ukrainian Association in Norway is organizing daily demonstrations here near the Parliament of Norway, and some days like today, also near the embassy of Russian fascism in Norway. Our goal is to show a solidarity with the people of Ukraine, to condemn Russian invasion and war crimes, and to address people of Norway and Norwegian politicians to call for more political, humanitarian, and military assistance to Ukraine. As always, we begin our demonstration with the national anthem of Ukraine. Доброго дня! Вітаю всіх на сьогоднішній демонстрації. Сьогодні 1263-й день з дня початку повномасштабного вторгнення. Як завжди, ми будемо розпочинати демонстрацію виконанням державного гімну України. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава захисникам та захисницям України!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Слава Збройним силам України!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
The war between Russia and Ukraine is going on for more than 10 years. It has started in 2014 when Russia has used the weakness of Ukraine and began the invasion of Crimea. Russia then started occupying the east of Ukraine. And back then, no one wanted to confront Russia. In 2015, Ukraine has been forced to sign the the agreement with Russia. It is so-called Second Minsk Agreement. It was supposed to end this war, to solve this war in a diplomatic way. The result of the Minsk II agreement was the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Russia has never implemented a single step from the agreement, but instead, as we know now, they started to rebuild their military facilities all along the border with Ukraine. On the Ukrainian military sites, there has been multiple diversions that has been attributed to the incorrect incorrect usage of the explosives. But now we know that most likely Russia was standing behind these diversions on the ammunition depots in Ukraine. This was a preparation. Russia knew that Russia was preparing for the full-scale invasion. There is abundance of evidence. When Ukraine in 2015 has told that if Russia will be allowed to build Nord Stream 2 pipeline into Germany, when the pipeline will be over, Russia will start the full-scale invasion. No one believed Ukraine except the Baltic countries who know the real threat from Russia. But no one listened to Ukraine, no one listened to Baltic countries. And the pipeline was over, and when Russia has amassed the troops on the border with Ukraine, they said these people will come back to their homes. They said that Russia is never planning to invade Ukraine. They repeated these claims just 2 weeks before the invasion. Now, when Russia promises something, when Russia tells that they have no plans to invade Europe, you should not believe them. Instead, you should hear a hidden threat in these words. So, 10 years should have been enough to understand what kind of outcome we want to have for ourselves here in Norway, in other European countries. We needed to have a strategy. We needed to understand what it means for our countries here, not for Ukraine. But it seems like we are still missing this strategy. The decisions from politicians are ad hoc, random. They are mostly following the opinion of the population, except in Norway, where population support increase of support of Ukraine, but politicians are lingering. They are only talking, but doing very little. But in other countries in Europe, there is not so much support among the population, because Russian propaganda there has been much more successful. So politicians are very reserved. They're not giving Ukraine the necessary amount of weapons. They're not giving Ukraine enough air defense systems. They don't want to give Ukraine long-range missiles, because what if Russian front will collapse? What if Ukraine will actually have a chance to win this war? Imagine or not, but for many people, decision makers in White House, in European governments, this is a scary scenario that Russia may lose this war. This is what we have to remember when it comes to the possible solution to the war in Ukraine that Trump wants to offer us. Once again, we are standing near the situation where Trump is going to decide the fate of Ukraine and the fate of European Union. He has excluded Zelensky from the next negotiations with Putin. He will meet Putin alone or one-to-one in Alaska on American soil. And Russia is already saying that Russia will offer US not only negotiations on Ukraine, but also some lucrative deals on Arctics, on Alaska, on the natural resources there. Russia is offering bribes to Trump. And Trump is concerned about two things: hype about how great he is, and money. So Russia can give him both things. If Russia offers this to Trump, there is very, very little chance that Trump will actually deny this package. What it will mean for us, it means that we will be all left behind. We as Ukrainians, we as Norwegians, we as Europeans. Trump doesn't care what happens in Europe. Trump's, I think it was, I don't remember, but one of the Trump people in the Trump's team. In the beginning, when Trump became a president, when he came to when he came to the NATO summit in Europe, he was talking not about the threat from Russia. He was talking about the threat of freedom of speech that comes from Europe. For Trump, the language of freedom, the expressions, and also the fact that we are moderating the language of hate, that we don't allow disinformation to be freely spread in the media. For Trump, this has become a problem. For Trump, this freedom in Europe is a problem, because Americans are looking at what Trump is doing. They're comparing with what is happening in Europe, and they might understand that they become a country similar to a Russian design. So this is the reason why Trump supports parties like Alternative for Germany and all the other ultra-right parties in Europe. He's supporting Orban, who is de facto a dictator in Hungary. This is a deliberate choice of Trump, because Trump only recognizes Russia and China as superpowers. Europe does not exist to him. Now, when Trump is going to negotiate with Putin, how much territory he will give to Russia in the exchange of Russia to stop the war, or maybe even less, Trump will not care about our interests. The fact that we are not included in negotiations means they will not be favorable to us. Trump's advisor Witkov has also vested interests in Russia. He's sponsored by the oligarch from UK called Leonid Blavatnik, or Len Blavatnik, a Ukrainian-born oligarch and the wealthiest person in the UK. Somehow he's not in the news and his name is not familiar to most of the people. So I offer you to try to search him in the media. In one of the years he was described as the wealthiest UK citizen. Later he got citizenship from US. So this is now a respected entrepreneur, a businessman. In fact, he is a Russian oligarch who has made his wealth on Russian oil. And he's sponsoring developments of Witkov in New York and Miami. So when Witkov is negotiating with Putin, he is mostly negotiating business, not politics. And this person has never been in politics. Again, there are a lot of red lines that Putin has been crossing. Trump has demanded that Russia stops the war until yesterday. Friday was the last day of the ultimatum that Trump has set to Putin. He said that Russia will face incredible tariffs and punishment if they don't do anything. And once again, nothing has happened. Russia hasn't stopped the war. Russia continues to bomb Ukraine like nothing happened. And just the promise of meeting with Trump was enough for Trump to walk back on his actions. You know that Trump is described as taco. Trump always chickens out. Once again, I think he deserves this call name, because once again, he promised to do something and he didn't deliver. So Trump said that before he will negotiate with Putin, Putin has to stop the war. But now he will just meet with Putin. And again, Putin can offer a lot to Trump. Putin can offer all the natural resources on the occupied territory, just with one condition, that this territory will be recognized by the US as Russian. Ukraine cannot afford to do this. Ukraine cannot offer all the natural resources to the US like Trump has demanded. And basically, these demands from Trump is something like gangsters are doing on the streets. This is very low point. This is basically, he's demanding ransom when he is betraying Ukraine, when he is not following all the previous promises US have made, all the agreements US have made. When Trump is saying that we might recognize Crimea and some parts of Ukraine as Russian, this is against the promise of US given in the exchange of nuclear weapons in Budapest Memorandum. Back then, Ukraine has given up nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, which now Russia uses to attack Ukraine, by the way. In exchange, Ukraine has received guarantees from the superpowers, from Russia, China, and US. In addition, UK, France have joined the agreement. The promise was that these countries will be guarantors of territorial integrity of Ukraine. What happens now? Russia has invaded Ukraine. China is fully supporting Russia, according to the latest announcements from China. And even US is betraying the agreement and saying that they are open to acknowledge some territory as Russian. So much for giving up nuclear weapons, for making the world a safer place. And Ukrainians, they thought that Ukraine is now the safest country on earth, that Ukraine will never be invaded. Ukraine doesn't need army. Ukraine has been disarming all those years. It was very few who saw that Russian invasion is possible. We thought that they are insane people, but now it happened. Something that we never thought is possible. So I ask those Norwegians who still think that Russia has always been a good neighbor and this will always be the same thing. Don't make the same mistake as Ukraine has done. When Russia has been invading Georgia in 2008, everybody in Ukraine thought this will never happen to Ukraine. We are good friends with Russia. Why would Russia invade Ukraine? There was something between Russia and Georgia. There had to be something that Russia had to invade. Ukrainians, we were blind. We thought that there was a reason, but there was none. The only reason was for Putin to occupy more territory, to get control, to get footprint in Georgia and not allow them to become an independent country, to become a free country. They don't allow Georgia, they don't allow Ukraine to be part of European Union, because this is a danger to Russian ideology of totalitarianism. So don't make the same mistake. Learn from the mistakes of Ukraine. Don't let be fooled that Russia is not going to invade Norway. If Russia would have a chance of invading and avoiding the punishment, they will definitely do this. And the result, and now we are back to possible negotiations between Trump and Putin. If Trump will offer Putin the immunity from all the war crimes that Russia has committed, if Trump will offer Putin parts of Ukrainian territory, this will be celebrated in Russia as victory. For Russia, this will be achievement of their objectives. Instead of getting punished, Russia will once again get a reward. This has happened all the time before, when Russia has been invading Chechnya, when Russia has been invading Georgia, Russian lasting occupation of Moldova. Nothing has got them punished. If it continues the same, it will be a sign that Russia can do whatever they want, that international law just don't apply to such big countries with a veto right in UN Security Council. It will be a sign to also China. It will be a sign to the US. Maybe US actually wants to go ahead with occupation of Greenland. We don't know. But if they allow Russia to not be punished, to get away from this, then they will open this possibility for themselves. They will open possibility for China to invade Taiwan, because it has been in analytics of many people that defending Taiwan will take a lot more resources than defending Ukraine. In case of Ukraine, what is necessary is just give money to Ukraine, because no one wants to serve justice, no one wants to punish Russia in another way. So the only way now is to give money, to give weapons to Ukraine so that Ukraine can continue this fight. In case of Taiwan, It would require a lot of resources from the US. It would require a lot of ships, these air carriers, to go and risk the lives of thousands of US Marines, to risk the very expensive equipment from the US. Do you think Trump will risk to lose all of this? Billions of dollars worth of military equipment and lives of a lot of Americans because of Taiwan? If he cannot answer the question why US would support Ukraine, then the promise of US to be protector of democracy around the world, it's gone. US has not questioned the reason why they have to defend democracies around the world. But now they seem to forget the answer. Now they say, if Ukraine pays us enough money, then we might consider supporting Ukraine. And if not, we will betray Ukraine. We will stop delivery of weapons. What happens now is even the weapons that has been paid for from the budget of former President Joe Biden, these weapons have been frozen. They are not delivered to Ukraine. And US, according to CNN, there are options to take these weapons back into the stockpile so that they will never be delivered to Ukraine. This is betrayal. This is the knife in the back. The moment when Ukraine needs most support from the US. And if they do this to Ukraine, they will do this to any other ally who cannot pay them. You might not notice a very peculiar moment. In the meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office, in this infamous meeting, there has been a question from a journalist to Trump. A journalist has asked Trump, are you going to support Poland? And Trump, almost without hesitation, said, of course, Poland is our ally, we are going to support Poland. And journalist followed up, and what about Lithuania? And Trump said, Lithuania? And then he hesitated, and then he said, yes, yes. What that yes means, we can only guess. But I don't think that Trump will care about Lithuania, because what can Lithuania pay to the US? Does it have enough money to pay Trump? No. What interest Trump has in Lithuania? He doesn't care about them. There is, of course, NATO agreement and NATO paragraph 5 of collective defense. But I have some bad news for you. Trump is already violating NATO agreement. Paragraph 2 of NATO agreement states that NATO members should avoid using political, economical, and military force against each other. When Trump is implementing tariffs against the allies, when Trump is implementing tariffs, especially against Canada, when he says that if Canada wants to avoid tariffs, it should join the United States. This is punishment. This is violation of NATO agreement, paragraph 2. So Trump doesn't care about these agreements. Trump doesn't care about all the previous commitments. And that the fact that we are again in a situation where we are sidelined by Trump, where we are not included in the negotiations, where Trump believes that he can decide a security situation for us here in Norway, for us in European Union, that he is free to offer Putin whatever he wants, that he can offer part of Ukrainian territory to Putin. This fact should be alarming to all of you, not just to Ukrainians. The reason is that European Union is too disjointed. We cannot agree on simple things. We also have such countries as Hungary and Slovakia who are running Russian errands, who block help to Ukraine, who block sanctions on Russia, who block any agreements on the defenses that are necessary for the whole European Union. And when Trump says that he's not going to support Ukraine, Europe does not have a proper answer. They don't have a strategy, at least it's not public. When we give money to Ukraine, The head of Venstre Party, Guri Melby, she asked in written from the government, what is the reason that government has allocated 85 billion NOK? Why this amount of money? Why not more? Why not less? Can they justify why this amount? And they couldn't explain why they did it. It looks like these amounts are random. There is no strategy, there is no goal what we want to achieve. Just give a little bit of money and hope that everyone is satisfied. But the risk is coming closer to us here. If Ukraine cannot continue the fight, if Ukraine is forced to stop the war, then the war becomes palpable here in Oslo. Because the only thing Putin needs is to take the troops from Ukraine and put them on the border with NATO, and then create provocations along the border in every village where there are lots of Russian-speaking population. And then it has to work out just in one small place. It doesn't have to work out on all the border. One small place would be enough. Video of Russians being beaten by the police, Russians saying that they are discriminated, Russians asking Putin to rescue them and send an army to stop their beating. This would create casus belli for Russia to invade some territory. This would prompt a response from all the NATO countries. Are we going to start a war with Russia because of some small village on the border with Russia where mostly Russians are living? This is a hard choice. If we don't support the country, if we allow Russia to grab the land, well, then how can we hope that help will come if Russia will start invading Norway? We cannot hope for that anymore if we don't help Lithuania, Latvia or Estonia. So the war becomes closer to our homes if the war in Ukraine will be put on pause. This is very dark truth, and this is not very comfortable for Ukrainians who actually want even a pause in the war. Even if it's forced, they will all appreciate this, because living under war for 3 years, some people for 10 years, it's extremely hard. It's a torture. But still, this is the truth. And what happens next? European Union and countries like Norway, they should make a decision. What outcome of this war is suitable for them? Do they allow Trump to freely decide? The rumors are that Trump has negotiated with the heads of EU countries, and Putin has negotiated with Prime Minister of India, Modi. He has negotiated with Xi Jinping from China. I think there was, and from Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, I think, from the heads of these countries. So it doesn't help. We cannot rely on the decisions from these men. We have to be an active player. Because what happens now, Trump and Putin, they are deciding how the new world order will look like. They decide what is allowed for big countries and what is not allowed. For what Russia or US or China may be punished and for what they will not be punished. There has been also an alarming news. I try to recall now that US, yes, the news has been that US is going to decrease the criticism of China on the violation of human rights. This was their intentional choice. The reason is again because what happens in the US internally is also a huge violation of human rights. So US does not care anymore about liberal democracy. They build their country, they transform very quickly into illiberal democracy, or I think it's also called like forced democracy or controlled democracy, similar to totalitarian regimes other places. They are not our allies, and we have to understand it. They are not sharing the same values. There has been interesting thread on how US have been attacking Canada. of how they have been threatening Canada. It has forced Canada to start negotiations with Europe. They even said that Canada is the most European country outside of European Union. And then you can compare. Europe shares the same values with Canada, but we don't have the same values with the US. So when we are in the same bloc of NATO, in the same defensive alliance, how can we trust decisions from Pete Hegseth or from Trump that they will actually come to our help? Unfortunately, we cannot. The question is, how can we substitute this alliance? We cannot break this alliance at once, because this will be shooting ourselves in the foot. But we have to be careful, and we have to provide for our own security. We have to increase security spending. We have to make sure that Russia has tremendous cost to invade Norway, to invade other European countries. This is the only thing that can prevent this from happening, that can stop them. I found very interesting post from Ukrainian analysts that I would like to cite today. Irina Krasnoshtan is writing that the peace through strength approach from President Trump towards Russia has ended before it even started. Once again, Special Envoy Witkov was deployed to Moscow, and the readiness and red lines and deadlines and last chances that were given to Putin to show real intentions to end the war were easily forgotten. Now, swapping or switching territories is the highest item on Trump's agenda. Will Russia exchange Kuban or Kursk for Crimea and Donbass? Of course not. Thus, swapping means that Russia will return back the occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and instead will get to keep occupied Crimea. And Russia will be offered the territory of Donbass, which they couldn't occupy since 2014. Not only Putin is being rewarded with the meeting with Trump without making any compromises and adhering to any preconditions for ceasefire set back in March. Even on contrary, after continuous escalations and disrespect to Trump personally, but Americans are actually willing to legitimize Putin's demands. Can we expect Trump to really pressure Putin during the in-person meeting? Or will they draw the lines in a friendly manner, and all the pressure will be once again on Ukraine to accept it? Europeans seems out of the picture again. So, that's basically the same thing as I have tried to explain. In the end, she asks, Trump believes that 25% tariffs on India is something that made Putin thinking. But instead, India has announced a visit from Putin to their country later this year as a result of tariffs from the US. The tariffs on India seems only like pushing India closer to Russian allies. So Trump does not understand his leverage, and the actions that he is doing are just causing havoc against the allies, a lot more than they're causing pain for Putin and Russia. And I'm afraid that there is another country which doesn't understand the leverage it has. Norway has economical superpower. Norway is a mighty warrior with a mighty sword, but it is so shy. It doesn't want to unshield the sword. Norway has economical power that can basically cause havoc in Russia, and the same goes for NATO allies. Russia uses 40% of the budget for military purposes. It's not the same as 40% of GDP. I cannot compare. But NATO countries which are supporting Ukraine, they're using very little on defenses. In the war of attrition, which it is in Ukraine, it is important to allocate resources for the war. And what happens now? Russia goes all in. They say that their whole economy will be working for the war effort. But Ukrainian allies are not recognizing this war as a big crisis. In the times of COVID, a lot more money have been allocated to fight against the results of the crisis. With the green shift, we have tremendous funding, not even similar. I think it's several magnitudes bigger than the funding to Ukraine. This is the priority. But the war in Ukraine is not our priority. This 85 billion NOK that Norway has promised to donate to Ukraine in different ways this year by buying weapons and delivering these weapons to Ukraine. It is a big amount, but this is not enough. And when political party 4, which should have been translated as Friends of Russia rather than Fred or Retfärdighet, the political party 4 is fooling you to saying that this 85 billion NOK should have been spent inside of Norway. It is not possible. You have money to spend inside of Norway, but if you spend 85 billions more, it will drive higher the prices. It will increase the interest rate from Norges Bank. It will do a lot worse to you. That's why you cut on the spending. But when it comes to buying weapons from another country and delivering them to Ukraine, it has zero impact on the prices, on the interest rate in Norway. 85 billion NOK that you spend on Ukraine do not increase the interest rate in Norway. But if you would be spending this on schools and hospitals, then you would pay more for the mortgage. Then we would pay all more in the shops. So this is the reason why Norway should have done a lot more. It has been echoed by economists, by specialists from Statistics Bureau. It has been echoed by many advisors to politicians in the Stortinget. Jonas Gahr Støre, he said that everyone has to do more, both as individual and as a country. Jens Stoltenberg, when he was the General Secretary of NATO, he was traveling around the world, meeting with presidents and saying how important it is to support Ukraine more, to increase support. But once he became a finance minister, his opinion has changed. What has happened? Does the risk situation with Russia has changed? Do we have to explain to Jens Stoltenberg the risk situation with Russia? I think he knows it best of anyone else in the government. He's the best informed person. So how come that he, when now he has the power to decide, cannot make the right decision? This is extremely frustrating. And please, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that we Ukrainians are not satisfied with the amount of help. We are thankful for every small bit that we're receiving from countries, from individual organizations, from individual funds, from every single person. We are thankful for everything we get. Norway has done a lot to Ukraine. Norway has delivered air defense systems that saved thousands of human lives. My criticism to government is meant to show you that all of this is not enough. If we want to prevent the war with Russia, if we want to make sure that Ukraine can win in this war, then all of this is not enough. So don't get me wrong. We are thankful, we are appreciating all the help, but we need more help. The biggest cities in Ukraine are not protected against ballistic threats because Patriot air defense system is the only thing that can do it. The cost of one system is 12 billion NOK, 12 to 15 depending on the exchange rate. 15 billion NOK, imagine this amount. This is the amount that government has planned to allocate for 1 year for Ukraine initially. This is the cost of just one system. Ukraine needs multiple systems like this. This year, Norway has promised to buy one such system for Ukraine. Germany has promised to buy 2. And then there has been some strange news that they have been delivered, and later the news that they will be delivered. So we don't know what actually happens. But we have to make a strategy. Joe Biden was criticized in the US for giving money to Ukraine without the goal, without a clear strategy. And this criticism is correct. We can criticize every government. They need to make a strategy. They need to explain to you why they support in Ukraine. Not because Ukrainians are so nice and so good, not because Ukraine is just a democratic country and we need to support democracies around the world. They have to explain that they support Ukraine to avoid the war with Russia, to provide for your own security. They have to explain this.
Будь ласка, зателефонуй в поліцію 112, 112 в поліцію зателефонуй, скажи, що ми на демонстрації, що тут прийшла людина, яка п'є пиво і переса. Вон та людина. Телефонуй в поліцію 112, вон чувак сидить, кричить і заважає. 112, вони скажуть тобі, телефонуйте в 24 800, ти скажи, що в нас в Авталі на політі Адмінокоп. 112.
The war in Ukraine has not stopped for a single day since the full-scale invasion. 1,163 days without a single stop. Which means Christmas, Easter, any other holiday is not reason for Russia to not kill some of Ukrainians. Almost every day they shell Ukrainian cities with drones and missiles. Every day they, in the open, in the broad daylight, send a bomb into targets like kindergartens, like children hospitals, in the middle of city. They take responsibility for these actions, but they say they killed some NATO troops there. We can see the footage, we can see the medical personnel, we can see the bodies of children, we can see civilians getting killed. But Russia doesn't care about this. According to unofficial estimates done last year in autumn, the amount of casualties in this war has surpassed 1 million people. This is combined amount of killed and injured. This is an amount of both Ukrainians and Russians, militaries and civilians. Every Ukrainian killed in this war is the tragedy for Ukraine. We believe that by now, the amount of people altogether who have been killed since the full-scale invasion is reaching 450,000 people. It is a lot less than Trump claims millions have been killed. But 450,000 people, it is more than half of the population of Oslo. So if you try to imagine everybody living in Oslo, every second person living in Oslo, this is how many people have been killed in this full-scale invasion. And Putin says that he will not stop until he occupies the whole of Ukraine. He doesn't care, and he will sacrifice more people for his objective to restore great Russian Empire. A tradition on our demonstration is to honor the memory of all the soldiers who fought for Ukraine and who have been killed in this war, as well as the memory of all the civilians who have been murdered in this illegal and unprovoked war started by Russia in Ukraine. I ask all of us to honor them with the moment of silence. Я прошу всіх згадати хвилиною мовчання пам'ять всіх військових, хто воював за Україну та загинув в цій війні, а також пам'ять всіх цивільних, хто був вбитий в цій незаконній та неспровокованій війні. Дякую. Thank you. Our time is coming to an end, and I would like to thank everyone who joined us today, everyone who supports Ukraine, and we are standing here every day at 5 o'clock on the work days, 12 o'clock during the weekend. Now in few moments we are going to go to the embassy of Russian fascism to tell those people who call themselves Russian diplomats, Russian spies in Norway, that we know their true mission. There has been a move to actually start the international tribunal against Russia, similar to the tribunal in which Hitler, or not Hitler himself of course, but in which fascist Germany has been charged after the war. We don't need to wait for this war to be over. There is abundance of evidence of war crimes committed by Russia. So in the international tribunal against Russia, there should be a separate track for diplomats, for people who intentionally promote Russian terrorism around the world, who try to corrupt our society, try to find a way to smuggle goods in Russia, try to find those individuals who are willing for a certain amount of money to help Russia with their war. So these people deserve to be charged on the international tribunal. They take part into killing of Ukrainian children in Ukraine. They are indirectly responsible for rapes and tortures committed by Russians in Ukraine. And they have to remember about this. Thank you very much, and you are welcome to join our other demonstrations. Сьогодні головною темою була можливі перемовини між Трампом і Хуйлом. Я пояснював норвежцям, що на цих перемовинах не буде України, на цих перемовинах не буде Європи, і де-факто Трамп буде вирішувати долю України і долю Європи. Як мінімум, Трамп вважає, що він має на це право і буде намагатися це зробити. Сподіватися, що Трамп буде критичним до Хуйла і зробить щось добре, на це сподіватися не варто. Звичайно, можливий сценарій, коли він буде роздратований Хуйлом і все ж таки додасть санкцій проти кацапів, але це просто покладатися на удачу і все. Ірина Красноштан в своєму пості дуже гарно описала ситуацію. Вона сказала, що, як завжди, Трамп обіцяв санкції Хуйлу, поставив ультиматум. Срок ультиматума був до п'ятниці, до вчорашнього дня. І, як завжди, після того, як строк ультиматума пройшов, нічого не сталося. Тому, на жаль, ситуація така, що Європі і іншим країнам, таким як Норвегія, в них закінчується час зрозуміти, чому насправді вони мусять підтримувати Україну. Що це вони мусять робити не тому, що українці такі красиві, такі гарні, не тому, що тільки Україна, не тільки тому, що Україна демократична країна, а тому, що, допомагаючи Україні, вони дбають про свою безпеку. Це не єдиний можливий вклад для Норвегії, для країн Європи в те, щоб унеможливити війну з кацапами. Я пояснював, що якщо буде перемир'я в Україні, кацапи зможуть перекинути свої війська на кордон з Європою, і далі їм треба тільки буде зробити провокації по всьому кордону, в містах, де живуть кацапи, і варто тільки в одному місці ці провокації здійснитися, щоб отримати відео, де кацапи де поліція буде бити кацапів, а вони будуть кричати, що їх дискримінують, і будуть просити Хуйла ввести війська, їх спасти. Одного відео в одному місці провокації, щоб вона вдалася, буде достатньо, щоб створити казус беллі для Хуйла. І це сценарій, який в Європі і Норвегії треба унеможливити. Для цього вони мусять підвищити підтримку України до дійсно необхідного рівня, а не давати гроші і не маючи змоги пояснити, а чому саме таку суму вони виділили Україні? Чому не більше, чому не менше? Досі в них немає стратегії, досі вони не можуть пояснити своїм виборцям, своїм колегам в парламенті, а чому вони виділяють тільки таку суму. Тому час у них закінчується і будемо дивитися, звичайно, як ситуація буде розвиватися. Дякую всім. І зараз, після виконання Державного гімну України, ми будемо йти до посольства кацапського тероризму, нагадати цим свинотам, що ми знаємо, що вони тут роблять в Норвегії. Дякую всім і приєднуйтесь до наших демонстрацій. Наші демонстрації проходять щоденно о 5-й годині в будні дні і о 12-й годині на вихідних.
Антон, поклади прапор, будь ласка. І побачимо, цей чувак ходить. Окей. Так, добре. На поліції ходить.
Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава захисникам та захисницям України! Слава! 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 Слава Збройним силам України! Слава! Слава! Слава!